Good morning, everybody. So when I last left you off with some of our content from our Civil War that we would show you in class, it was on this information here on the Pear Deck about looking at modern weapons that are used and the damage they cause during the Civil War. Right now, we're going to pick up right here. Okay, a little review. Some new information for you as well. So as you're at home, take out a piece of paper, okay, and write down what you think is important. Maybe some questions that would go along that you can write your answers to. Okay, this is not going to be a graded assignment, but this will be used for other graded assignments that come this week. Okay, so make sure you're paying attention, and anything you don't understand, use the class comment stream to go ahead and ask questions, so that way you participate and gain the knowledge that we need here. All right, so this is some of the stuff you already read in the textbook, okay? Okay. No, honey, we're not going to, excuse me, we're not going to open chalk in the, go get the chalk out of the other thing that's open, honey. Okay. Okay, where were we? All right, sorry about that. All right, so here we are. Okay, okie dokie. All right, quarter of. All right, so this is what you read about in your text already. Okay, we had Bull Run, where the Union Army went into it. American government thing, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk, no problem. Okay, yeah, not so much. Then we picked this guy, General McClellan, Little Mac, the Napoleon of the West. He comes in to lead the Army of the Potomac. Okay, you'll see those words a lot. Army of the Potomac is named for the Potomac River, which surrounds Washington, D.C. Okay, so battles break out here. You got another guy that you'll hear from before about Ulysses S. Grant. He's got a giant tomb in New York City around Columbia. Go check it out someday if you're there. It's actually pretty cool. You can see it crossing the George Washington Bridge. And the reason why that we built a giant tomb for him, a giant, I wouldn't call it a mausoleum, I don't know what you call it, but it's massive. And because he crushes things, and we'll get to him soon. Shiloh, major battle here. Okay. This is where the Confederacy actually pretty much loses the war, according to some historians, because in this battle, they lose their most professional general, General Albert Sidney Johnson. Okay? Again, it's in Tennessee, another deadly battlefield here. One of the things that's cool about this that I read, and I have it somewhere, that I usually give as a handout in class, is at this specific battle, as the soldiers are lying there wounded, there was some kind of mud or like worms in the mud that were like crawling on the soldiers, and they had like this green luminescence at night. Well, it turns out that that mud or worm, I can't remember what it was exactly, actually prevented gangrene from setting in on a lot of those wounds from the soldiers who were left there overnight, which saved a lot of their lives. A little pretty cool biodiversity. And then lastly, we got Commander Farragut, okay, takes New Orleans. So why is that important? Because without New Orleans, you can't deposit or you can't receive goods at the mouth of the Mississippi River. So that's a major blow to the Confederacy, because we now control that port city and some of the parishes that surround it around there, including Red Sticks, Baton Rouge, and Natchez, which is the city on the Mississippi and Mississippi as well. So we've already talked about this in your textbook reading. Richmond, McClellan moves like a snail, which infuriates Lincoln. He's like, dude, you have a huge army, use it. And, Little Mac's like actually popular with his men, according to some historians that I've read in the past. And I forget the name of the book. It might have been the PBS supplement to the Civil War series. And the reason why they liked them is because they drilled, but they didn't fight. They're like, cool, we look good, but we're not dying. So again, drills troops for 5 months, and Lincoln's like, come on, man, and that's where in one of the other Pear Decks, you looked at the Lincoln's order to move. Everyone must move, including you, McClellan. So he moves on to Richmond, and this guy, Robert E. Lee, kind of says, yeah, bro, it ain't happening. Antietam, this to this day is the single bloodiest day of battle in American history. I think the number is like 3,000, 4,000 American soldiers, okay? Either from the Union or the Confederate troops here, 3 to 4,000 are killed in a single day. Right? It's massive, right? And there's a site there in Maryland today that if you're ever out that way, go check it out. Okay? It's good to pay homage to those guys who sacrificed there to preserve our Union. Okay? All right, moving on, and that's where right here Lincoln finally has enough and fires McClellan. But we will hear from McClellan again because he is going to run to become president in 1864. Yeah, it's not going to go too well for him, right? Except for most of New Jersey votes for him. Think of that. All right, so War of the East, there's Antietam up here, okay, in modern day Maryland. Here is Manassas, which is in Virginia, right outside here, okay. First big battle in Antietam of 62 over here. You can see Maryland is a Union state, Virginia a slave state. That's why Maryland is called a border state here. Slavery is still allowed here in Maryland. Slavery is still allowed here in Delaware. And in New Jersey, we have the indentured servants for life clause that's not wiped out until after the 13th Amendment in 1865. And again, our Mason-Dixon line right here, okay, you can see it that we've spoken of before, causing that separation. So if you're the Confederacy, you're looking, if I could swing up in here into Harrisburg, come through here, knock out Philadelphia, I can completely circle things, but we'll come to that later. Antietam, what we just talked about, bloodiest single day of the war, about 4,000 dead and 23,000 wounded. That is an actual photograph to the right. Again, photography is going to play an important part in this war because people are going to see pictures of what conflict actually looks like. And they're going to realize it isn't some heroic deed. Okay? Bodies are left to rot, picked over, grave robbers, everything. It's not pretty. Emancipation Proclamation, I'm going to skip through this because we've already done several things about this. Okay. Again, remember, this is simply a declaration and it applies to the states in rebellion, not the entire United States. Okay? Here's a map showing where you have Black Americans who have joined the Union Army. Okay. Most famous is the 54th Massachusetts, led by Colonel Shaw out of Massachusetts. They made a movie about them called Glory. You should go check it out. A little Denzel, a little Morgan, a little Matthew. Great movie. It tells their story. That's storming down here in Fort Wagner around Charleston. But they're heavily involved, and they're fighting not just for because most of them are free that are in the army. They are free, okay, but they're fighting for their ilk who aren't. Okay? So pretty dedicated guys, and some of them massacred at Fort Pillow. I believe that's don't quote me on that, in Tennessee, where they're captured Union soldiers and they're massacred by the Confederates because they are Black. Now imagine that. Imagine you're a slave. So look at the title here, Black Troops Freeing Slaves. And you've been an African slave for 20 years of your life. You're told that you are a beast of burden. You're not taught to read or write. You are treated inhumanely. And imagine that sight of you looking up and seeing someone who looks just like you coming in, fully brandished with weapons, arms, and a uniform, and saying, you're now free. That's got to be a pretty darn awesome thing to see. Okay. This slide right here, okay, Emancipation in 1863. Again, our border states, Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, Delaware. This wasn't even a state yet right here, okay? West Virginia, the counties of Virginia. Here's our Union. Slaveholding is allowed, as you can see, in the border states right here, okay? Area in which slavery was abolished by the Emancipation Proclamation are the horizontal lines. The horizontal lines you can see all throughout here, but if you look closely, okay, you can see right here, okay, that those lines are vertical, which means legal slaveholding. Those are the areas that were under Union control still, and the Emancipation did not apply to them. You can also, it doesn't make it out on the map, but where Norfolk and Portsmouth are, same thing down here, okay? Look at Tennessee, okay? Tennessee, Legal slaveholding is still allowed, but Tennessee's basically been overrun and controlled by the Union Army right now. Southern view of emancipation. Okay. So, according to Southerners, if you take a look at Abe Lincoln here writing the Emancipation Proclamation, okay, look what he's dipping his inkwell in, the devil's juice. Okay. What do you think he has his foot on? What type of book? Okay. Probably the Bible in this picture right here. So this view of it is this old man, this demon liberating slaves, okay, taking away Southerners' property, and it's not a good thing for them, for their perspective. Okay. Some reactions to it. Now we have the war a high moral purpose, meaning we're no longer just fighting a war to preserve the Union. We're now fighting a war to end slavery as well, abolish it. So if you're abolitionists, William Lord Garrison, Frederick Douglass, the Garricky sisters, you're like, sweet, okay? We're going to allow free blacks who are able to come in and fight, okay? And now you have these guys right here, okay? Northern Democrats claim will antagonize South, prolong the war. Yeah, it will antagonize him. And these guys begin to get names, okay? So if you remember, like when we were looking at previously, before the war, we're looking at the like beginnings of the Republican Party, founded to stop the spread of slavery in the West, okay? Then you had the Democrats down south, and Democrats up north, okay? Now these guys, these Northern Democrats who are saying we should like maybe sue for peace, or maybe let's stop this bloodshed. They begin to get a nickname, and that nickname is Copperheads. So think, what is a copperhead? Yes, you're right. It is a venomous snake. Okay, and they are found in Pennsylvania, copperheads. Okay, so what these Northern Democrats slash Copperheads, the reason why they're given this name is because many people feel that they are snakes in the grass, trying to strike the Union from behind, okay, and trying to hurt the cause of the United States. So the emancipation, now that the Southerners know that if they lose, they also lose their property and their way of life, they're going to strengthen their resolve to fight. Okay, so compromise is over. And famous painting of a slave right here, reading about his liberation of the emancipation. But again, until the United States military comes through, it's not going to happen. Here is the famous 54th Massachusetts, spoke of before. Okay. So to colored men, 54th Regiment, African descent, 100-hour bounty, $13 a month. The state of Massachusetts will provide some aid to your families. Okay. Gather here, Cambridge, North Street, and Boston, and let's make this happen. Okay, so this right here is a poster from Louisiana. Okay, and this poster is showing images of men who have decided, after those areas, Louisiana, those parishes surrounding New Orleans, they are going to join up and fight for the people who freed them, the United States of America. However, there's still some racism in this picture. What is the racism and discrimination that is still on display? Yes, that is absolutely correct. Okay? If you look to the left of this image, you will see the officer here. And the officer here is white, because the idea was, okay, that even though black soldiers are going to fight, the belief by some was, in the United States Army, that they're not intelligent enough yet to lead themselves into battle, which is a bunch of malarkey, but it takes us a long time to get past that here. So a little textbook slide right here. Okay, 10% of the Army, 1% of the North's population. That should tell you that they are joining en masse. Okay. You read about this in one of the common lit assignments. Okay. Limits on rank, lower pay. This one, POWs killed or returned to slavery. So if a black Union soldier was captured by a Confederate detachment, they would be executed. Okay. That's not supposed to happen in warfare. Okay. Because if you execute our soldiers, there's a chance that they might execute yours. Okay. It's not a pretty thing. There's supposed to be some rules to war. Here's the Fort Pillow incident in Tennessee. Over 200 Black Americans who surrendered, and then they were gunned down. Okay? Slave resistance, destroy property, seek freedom. All right, so this is a giant relief memorial in Boston, Massachusetts. If you're ever there, go check this out. Okay, this guy right here, Colonel Shaw, who was the white officer in charge of the 54th Massachusetts, he's killed in action. Okay, at Fort Wagner in South Carolina, leading these guys into battle. And the state of Massachusetts, city of Boston, has put this massive relief there right by the State House for everyone to remember the sacrifice of these men. Okay? There is the State House, the Golden Dome, and there is this giant relief. So you can see it's not something small. So go check it out if you're ever in Beantown, and get a glimpse of what this is. And there's some writing on the back of it here. To the 54th, the white officers taking life and honor in their hands cast their lot with men of despised race, unproved in war, and risked death as inciters of servile insurrection if taken prisoners, besides encountering all the common perils of camp, march, and battle. So the white officers were also told that if you are a white officer leading black soldiers into combat against the Confederate forces, you also will be executed. Okay? To the black rank and file, volunteer when disaster clouded the Union cause, served without pay for 18 months till given that of white troops, faced threatened enslavement, captured, were brave in action, patient under heavy and dangerous labors, and cheerful amid hardships and privations. Okay? So pretty cool remembrance here by the state of Massachusetts right in the capital city, and it's not something that you can easily miss when you're walking on Boston Common there. So if you take a look at this, both sides face political problems. Yes, okay. You have the Copperheads in the north. You have, I don't even know the name for it, in the south, people who are starting to say, this isn't going the way we thought it was going to go. Okay. So how do you handle critics in a time of warfare? Do you allow open criticism on the fly, or do you do what Lincoln did and you end habeas corpus, where you basically say, if you critique me, you're going to end up in jail? What is dissent? Okay. So here's what I just said about Lincoln suspending habeas corpus. Okay. So what that means is if you are arrested, you're literally held in jail and you will not be brought before a judge, which means that the government can hold you indefinitely. Not good. This has been part of like legal precedent, English common law, American law, with our Constitution, with the English common law, like with the Magna Carta of 1215. But Lincoln's doing this because he wants to get rid of all dissent, okay? Because he wants to wrap this war up, right? And that's where people begin to call him, a tyrant because of this. On the video, you saw that telegraph offices were seized. Okay? Control all lines of communication. The Copperheads I already spoke about here. Okay? Arrested the Copperheads, the Northern Democrats. Okay? Davis announces Lincoln, then suspends habeas corpus in the South. So Jefferson Davis says, Lincoln, you're bad, then does the exact same thing. And then Lincoln makes the imperial presidency begin, meaning that he's going to start using all those powers of the presidency more than any other president. Okay. The Copperhead Party, okay, in favor of a vigorous prosecution of peace. So if you take a look at this image here from Harper's, okay, you have the lady holding the sword with the star on her libertine cap there and shield. Who do you think she represents? Yes, that's absolutely correct. The United States of America. Okay? And who is she defending herself from? Now, many of you would say the Confederates right off the bat, but no. She's defending herself from the Northern Democrats who are looking to sue for peace. So not only in this image is this artist saying that America's got to fight against the Confederacy, the states in rebellion, but also has to fight from people from behind, the fifth column behind her own back, like snakes in the grass. Okay. This city right here, okay, Vicksburg, major city that you read about in the text, right on the Mississippi, giant fortress there. Okay, here are riverboats, gunboats, ironclads from the United States sailing up the Mississippi, bombarding Vicksburg. This is awful. People living in caves here, eating rats. Yeah, it was bad. It's a siege. Siege warfare is not pretty. But this was the last great bastion of the Confederacy on the Mississippi River. And once Grant took this, okay, and at the same time Gettysburg happened, that's the death knell of the Confederacy. Game's over. Say goodnight. 47-day siege. Okay. So you have Vicksburg right here. Okay. If you follow the Mississippi River south, you're going to find New Orleans. Okay. So the Big Black River, the Yazoo River, this entire area right here now is all in the hands of the Union. So what that means is it's divided, cut the Confederacy in half, and the United States military now controls the superhighways of the time, being able to move troops and supplies back and forth much easier. And again, who is responsible for it? General Grant. Yeah, a little mouse right there because that was a big source of food in Vicksburg. Here's a picture of what it looked like in Vicksburg. Okay? These are the people living out of the huts dug into the side. Would not be a good idea to be in a house anywhere here because that house would be a target for artillery gunners and the Union gunners on the river down below. So you're living in the side of hills. It's now a national military park. Okay, here it is, Vicksburg National Military Park. Closed. We are going to do the hazardous conditions. USS Cairo, I believe, is one of the gunboats that are on there still. Was the nailhead that holds the South's two halves together. Vicksburg is the key. Okay. Forts will hunt 7 can determine war's outcome. So if you're ever down in Mississippi, there you go. And there's the USS Cairo, one of them down there. I think I might want to check this out someday. Never been down here. Okay. Ooh, look at that. March 7th. I don't think that probably happened. Okay. So yeah, Vicksburg. Inflation. Now, quick reminder, inflation is when the prices of goods increase, which decreases the value of the money that you hold. Okay. So what that looks like today. Okay. You take your favorite pair of Air Jordans that used to cost, I don't know, when I was a kid, $85. Now those same Jordans are up to like $300. Did the Jordans change? Some of the style, but the components are pretty much the same. So what changed? The value of the item, the demand for the item, and the value of our currency. Now, if you look here, okay, look at what 10 pounds, 10 pounds of bacon in 1860 would cost you $1.25. 3 years later, $10. That is quite the rate of inflation. Okay? Meaning that if your wages do not keep up with the rise of these prices, then you're able to buy less, if any at all. Okay? Which one? Look at this. Coffee. 4 pounds of coffee. 50 cents. 3 years later, $20. Okay? So this is a luxury item. Right? And any time in warfare, okay? Not even warfare. Think about now. Okay? Think about if you've heard your parents or yourselves talking about like buying masks, like these N95 masks. These masks used to I have a couple from doing projects around the house. You can go to Home Depot and buy like a couple of them for $5, whatever it was. Okay. Now you can't even find them. And the ones that you can find from sellers, $15, $20 per mask. Why? Because people want them. There's a massive demand. The supply is not readily available. And you have people that are price gougers working on the black market for it. I did see recently there was a guy in Brooklyn who had a warehouse in New Jersey who had 750,000 of these masks. Okay? And he was looking to say, you know what? It's a global pandemic. People are hurting, but I'm going to be a good capitalist and I'm going to make some money. And the FBI said, not today, Sonny. We're going to confiscate those and we're going to give those to state governments that need them to protect healthcare workers. So you can make some money at this time in warfare by being a black market hoarder and doing this. But if you get caught, and you're breaking the law doing it, it's not going to be good for you. Okay? But again, here are the prices that are displayed for you here. You want you want to see in the dark? $2.50. Okay, so how many people's wages do you think kept up with those rise of prices? Not many. Okay, so inflation is going to break the back of the South as well. So this building in Philadelphia, beautiful building. Okay, it's massive. It's like the size of a city block. Okay, this building is the Union League, still around. Okay, it's a like club basically, um, and it is a club that's founded, okay, basically to support the United States of America in the Civil War. Okay? It's a Republican club because the people who were president at this time, the president's party was the Republican. Okay, I don't know today if you need to be a Republican to join this club or not, but it's known in Philadelphia as being like a swanky place to go. And it's a beautiful building. It's Second Empire style, right down the street from City Hall. It's beautiful there. Okay? And let's see, I have here unionleague.org. There you go. Number one best city club. Okay. Let's see, membership. 1862, patriotic side to support the policies of Abraham Lincoln. Private members only. 3,500 members. You see who can join. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Yeah. There's your dining room benefits. There's a video you can watch about it if you want to. But again, that building that you'll see there, and listen, you can't miss this building if you're walking up Broad Street. It's massive. It's beautiful. It's a private club there, but it was founded at this time to support basically gathering wealthy individuals in the city saying, let's do what we can to make sure we support the war effort of the President of the United States. All right, so Gettysburg, okay. Here's Chancellorsville, Fredericksburg, okay. And Lee's like, hey, I've won here. You know what? I'm going to go get me some food. I'm going to go raid the heartland. I'm going to go strike fear in these Yankees up here, okay. I can hit Harrisburg, which lies up here on the Susquehanna, the capital of Pennsylvania. If I can hit Harrisburg and then I can swing down to Pennsylvania, I get a chance of ending this war. Okay? Gettysburg is where the Union says, not today, Sonny. It's not going to happen. Okay? So I'll post this slideshow on Classroom so you can click these links if you'd like to explore further. I know in the CP class you probably have explored as much as you want with the 2-day assignment, but again, there's always room for more. This right here will take you to an animated video of it on Gettysburg. We'll explain in detail a little more how these battles happen. And this right here, one of the most infamous things in American history, which I'll get to in a second. So third day, they're bombing each other. Okay? Lee orders an attack on the line, which is this Pickett's charge I'll get to in a second. Lee retreats to Virginia. I think the number's like 30,000 dead over 3 days. It's horrendous. Okay? Go to Gettysburg someday. Take a bicycle, take a tour, walk, go. It is breathtaking. Okay? Go in Devil's Den. Look where the sharpshooters were. Go down to the orchards, the creek, and experience this history that's there. Oops. So Pickett's charge. George Pickett, Virginia. Okay? And George Pickett is given the quote-unquote honor, okay, to charge the Union lines on the third day. He loses like over a third of his men. Yeah, I think it's like 20,000 men start out, and a third don't come back because they walk into cannon fire and everything else. All right. This site that I have it linked to here, let me see why. This deals with, why do I have this linked here? Don't forget the Confederates, wounded soldier, field hospital, general hospital. I'm going to check out why I have this here. Why do I have that linked to there? Good question. Okay. Also, let's see if I have it up here. Yeah, this is pretty horrendous. So 3 days of battle, July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. On the 4th and 5th, okay, early morning on July 4th, a major thunderstorm happens. Okay, one of those summer storms where it just pours rain. Well, a lot of the guys, especially guys from New Jersey who were wounded, are like lying on this area next to the creek, fresh water. Well, the creek overruns its bounds. But a lot of these guys who are like missing limbs, okay, get caught in a flash flood and unfortunately, they drowned. Okay? So they survived the battle, survived the war, but because the planners of the hospital did not take into account that a flash flood might occur in the middle of July, they put it on the too low-lying of an area, and a lot of Union soldiers were killed afterwards because of that. Some casualties from Gettysburg. Okay? 3,100 killed, 14,000 missing, captured or missing 5,000, total losses 23,000. Lee, look at this right here. Okay, 4,000 killed, 18,000 wounded, captured or missing. Total losses 28,000 out of 50,000. He loses over 50% of his forces. Okay? He cannot afford this loss. This is massive. Okay? This wasn't supposed to happen for Lee. Okay? Couple this loss with Vicksburg, okay, and things aren't going to turn out so well for these states in rebellion. So, because of Gettysburg and the Vicksburg, you have people now that are saying, I think we can do this. And they start buying war bonds. Right? So, war bond is you're going to give the government your money, and in return, the government's going to give you a piece of paper. Okay? So, here you can see here's a war bond from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You give them money, and after the war's over, they will pay you back. This is about Rock Creek right here. Okay, I have it highlighted here. Site of hospital which had chosen a grave of trees placed on rising ground, all sides of the ravine. Hundreds of wounded. Okay, rebels scarcely to be seen, laying on the ground. Okay, so again, this is something you can go through and look a little more detail here about the after effects of a battle. Lincoln, the Gettysburg Address. Okay, there he is right there. No top hat on. Okay, only picture that's known of have him there. And why is the Gettysburg Address so important? Okay, the words that remade America. Okay, so I'll put this up here again. You can click and read the story from the Atlantic. Okay, it tells a little more detail about what was going on there and why those words 7 years ago moved the nation and made people say, you know what, those words mean something. Those words mean that we are trying to fulfill that promise of our founders to make this a nation where all men are created equal. A drawing of him giving the address, very short and sweet. This is in November of 63. 2 minutes long. Again, you've broken this down on Common Lit already, so I'm going to skip through this here. Okay, but again, you can go back and read this here. It's broken down. In class, we will go through that a little more. Okay, so we get to where the Union's like, you know what? We don't have enough volunteers for our army. We need to have some conscription going on. Okay, the date of this one right here, as you can see, is September of 1863. Okay, so what conscription means is that you don't have a choice to join the army or not. Okay, you have to join, okay, if your number is chosen, unless, of course, you can afford to pay a substitute, $300. Now think about that. $300 today, you could probably scrap that together. Go sell some pretzels on the street, soda pop, whatever. Take you a week or two, you might be able to scrap $300 together. But if we adjust for inflation, $300 in 1863 means you have a lot of wealth. Okay? So the only people who could buy themselves out of conscription or out of the draft were the wealthy. Never a good plan. Okay, because now you're saying to the lower social classes, you go fight and die when the wealthy can stay home safe as long as they can afford something. Right? So here's the draft. This one's from the 14th Congressional District in Ohio. Okay, the whole number required from this district is 619. So the United States government says we need 619 able-bodied young men from this county. Okay, Holmes County, Ashland County. Okay. So this is, you're going to show up, you're going to send your number, and if we call your number, guess what? You are drafted and you're part of the United States military, whether you like it or not. We don't have this nowadays. Okay? This ended after the Vietnam War. There are several reasons for that, which we're not going to get into here. Take the class with Mrs. Collodi or Mr. Adams, and they are going to describe a little more detail how unpopular the draft became. So here again, conscription, desertions. People are like, I got them out of here. So it leads to getting more people drafted in here. Both sides can hire substitutes as long as you can afford it. If you're a planter in the South with more than 20 slaves, you're exempted. So imagine that. Wait, I don't own slaves, but I got to go fight for a guy who's a millionaire who owns what? Okay. Draft rights. These are really bad. Okay. New York City. All right. So in New York City, you have those know nothing, those nativists that we looked at before. And they're like, whoa, you want to draft me to go fight in a war, to go liberate some black people who are going to come up to New York City and take my job because they're willing to work for lower wages. Yes, that's what we like you to do. You can imagine the response to that. Yeah, it was not pretty. It was so bad, in fact, right, that in New York City there's a massive riot and they are going to execute free blacks walking through the streets. Right, those nativist Irish mobs that the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, the Irish who were once the ones who were targeted that are now part of the native groups are going to come after free blacks in the city and hang them from street lamps. Right, it is absolutely heinous, so bad that troops from Gettysburg, instead of chasing after Lee or going further south, are going to be sent by railroad up to New York City to put the riots down. Okay? So now you're going to have American, citizens facing combat-trained troops and being told to stand down. And there are going to be some deaths up here of American civilians because they're going to shoot at some Union soldiers. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe there's like a colonel or a captain who's actually killed by some of the mob as well. So here you buy your way out of military service. Okay. So here is your wealthy gentleman walking into a slum, a almshouse, a drunkard's house, a poor house, and basically saying, hey, pick one of these guys, they'll fight in your place. Irish immigrants being recruited down here at the Castle in Battery Park in New York City. Okay. 30,000 volunteers want it. Okay. Cash down, we'll pay you some money. The state will pay you some money. All you got to risk is your life. Blacks being recruited in New York City to go fight. And here are the draft riots. July 13th, so a couple days after Gettysburg. Okay. And if you look at this closely right here, a speech by the governor, noon on July 14th, which is letter B right here. You can go down and read C, D, E, F, and what happens. Soldiers and rioters in Gramercy Park, which is where the mayor's headquarters, the mayor's mansion is right here. And you can see all throughout the city, it gets lit up by these people that are like, we don't want to go fight in this war. Baseball bat right here portrays where the black Americans are being attacked. This area up here of Manhattan's modern day Harlem up in here. Here you have Hell's Kitchen over here. Okay. A little imagery. Not pretty, guys. And this word right here is an important word in history. Okay. So again, people hung from street lamps and from trees. This is how awful it was in the heart of New York City. Okay. Where we're supposed to be the Union. Okay. All for men are created equal, right? Yeah. Things aren't going well still. Just because some people in our American government and abolitionists are trying to make that happen doesn't mean all Americans are like that. Okay? A pogrom is when you literally use resources of the state, okay, and vigilantes, and what you're doing is purposely driving a specific group out. So in this case, it's blacks in New York City. You have cases in Europe where you have pogroms against Jews in the 1880s, 1890s in Russia. We're specifically driving them out of the villages because we don't like them. We blame them for something happening. Here, these Americans, these WASP white Americans in New York City are blaming black Americans for being conscripted to warfare. So they are going to drive them out and kill them. Here's a map showing you some of the gains. Okay. Progress of the war. Okay. 1861. Here we are. 1862. Moving further and further. 63. All the way down through here in Louisiana, controlling the Mississippi. Okay, as you can see, you control this Mississippi, and then you cut off Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas from the other half of the Confederacy here. And this one right here is a good one. Sherman's March to the Sea. Hotlanta to Savannah. And this is where General Sherman is going to start laying down some law. Okay. So 1864 presidential election. Yes, elections still happen during wars, during pandemics, whatever it is. We still retain our democracy and have elections to decide whether or not the leader is doing a good job. So Lincoln's faced with, am I going to win? Okay. The Republicans put up Lincoln, the incumbent president, and the Democrats choose Little Mac. Okay. Again, I said he would be back. Well, here he is. And for McClellan, it didn't go so well. Okay. McClellan gets crushed, 212-21. That's a whooping. Okay. So McClellan gets 45% of the popular vote. That's a huge number, by the way. Look at that. Okay. But then look what Lincoln gets here on electoral. Okay. And what about these guys? They're not voting because they're in the middle of a war. Okay. So McClellan is popular in Kentucky and Jersey. 18, and I'm going to guess some fractional votes came from somewhere else. Looks like Delaware, 18-3-21. Yeah. So Delaware, New Jersey, and Kentucky are all for McClellan. Delaware, slave state. Kentucky, slave state. New Jersey, slave state or indentured servants. They're all like, yeah, let's go with the Democrat. And every other state is like, nah, bro. We're going to stick with the Republicans and Lincoln. So that is an electoral whooping. Here again, the Copperheads, okay? Exposition of the KGC, Knights of the Golden Circle, History and Secession, all right? This is one of the leaders of the Copperheads who's trying to get Lincoln to end the war, sue for peace, which means that there would be two countries. Not going to be a popular thing, okay? Now look at this poster, okay? Abraham Africanus the First. His secret life as revealed under the mesmeric influence, the mysteries of the White House. So what is this person saying about Abraham Lincoln? What is this campaign poster saying? They're saying that he is a friend of the Africans. Okay? I wonder what his secret life is. Who has mesmerized him to go to the side of the black Africans in our society instead of the white folks? Yeah, this is a very racist society still. Okay? And if you haven't been paying attention the last couple months, the Democrats are the ones in the 19th century who support the expansion of slavery. And now the Republican president is ending slavery as best as he can through the fighting of this war, and they're none too happy about it. Okay. Here's a cartoon making fun of them. Okay. Please come back. We will do everything we can to get you on our side. Oh dear, I can't stand this much longer. Okay, I'm going to have to look into that more because I don't remember what this is about from last year. All right, so 1865, a war of attrition. Attrition means that you wear people down by numbers. Okay, so now we got Lee running around in Virginia, and we got General Grant who's ready to do some whooping in Virginia. Okay, I'm going to hold Lee down in Virginia, and I'm going to send my boy William Tecumseh down to Hotlanta, and Mr. Sherman is going to destroy Georgia. Why doesn't Lee go down there and help? Because he can't. Because Grant is nipping at his heels every step of the way through the Blue Ridge Mountains, through other parts of Virginia, pursuing him, trying to end this war. Okay? And here's where that conscription comes into play. The North, they can use rail lines. They can get soldiers to the battlefield quickly. They have major cities pulling out hundreds, thousands of men back into uniform. The South can't keep up. Final Virginia campaign. Grant's pursuing him all the way down through here until finally Grant corners Lee at this little spot right here, Appomattox Courthouse, okay? Name of a town in Virginia. Okay? Then you got Sherman down here, starting out of Tennessee, Chattanooga, all the way through Atlanta, where he destroys. And then he's going to create a wide swath. Okay? Literally everything in his path that has any type of military value, he is going to march from Atlanta to Savannah, march to the sea, and destroy it. Then he's going to turn north and do the same thing through South Carolina and North Carolina. All right. This man's name is still not well liked in the South because he literally ravages everything. Yeah. So a little information slide there. Just know Sherman was no joke. Burned buildings, infiltration along the way, many towns and cities, scorched earth campaign, meaning you burn everything. Took Savannah, 22nd, 64. So this is pretty cool right here. So here are railroad ties, right? You need railroad ties to move goods across the way. Sherman necktie. So what you do is you heat these things up, get them hot, all right? A couple guys, wrap them around a tree, bend this steel like this, and guess what? You can't use this steel to run railroads anymore. So this is an example of the scorched earth policy that Sherman is pursuing down here in the South. A little video you can watch on your own there. March to the sea. Okay. And now we get to the fall of Richmond. And so Richmond is the capital of the Confederacy. Okay. Take a look at those buildings. Okay. Yeah. This is where the Union Army are going to come in and they're going to lay siege and they're going to destroy the Confederate capital. Okay. This is going to be the death knell. So this is in April of 65. April 3rd, 65. Okay. It's a few short days before Appomattox and Lee's going to surrender. Here is General Custer, okay, receiving the flag of truce. So here's a Confederate cavalry officer with a white flag, and this is General George Custer, you may have heard of from the Indian fighting days, who's going to be killed at Battle of Little Bighorn, but he is receiving this flag of the Confederate surrender. So General Lee comes to Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia, the town, and there Lee and Grant sit down, and Lee says, I would like terms and surrender, and Grant says, your terms are to surrender and your men may return home with their arms, meaning they keep their rifles for hunting. Okay, which was kind of like, cool, Grant, because a lot of the time, like unconditional, you lay down your arms and you surrender everything. But at least these guys can now go back home and use their weapons for hunting, squirrel, whatever it is they need. Where a lot of generals will be like, no, confiscate them so in case you rise again. You got General Johnson still fighting until April 26th of 1865. And then you got a battle still going on in Texas. And I think, what is it here? In June of 65. Check the date here. Oh, no. Battle of Mooresville Station, April 13th, 1865. Following day. Nope, West Point, April 16th. Columbus, Georgia, May 1st. Okay, May 1st, we're still going. May 12th, Trans-Mississippi region, Brownsville, summer of 65. So here in June of 65, after the war's over, this ship, which of course didn't get the message yet, is out there raiding Union shipping. Okay, so all the way until almost July, the war is still going on. Yeah, news travels slow. There's no satellite phone getting out there to the ships at sea. Okay, so surrender at Appomattox. There's a famous painting. Lee surrendering to Grant. Oops. General Lee and his army have surrendered. Dawning of the day of peace. All honor to the gallant brave. Okay? Liberty and union forever. Okay? Slavery and treason buried in the same grave. All right, so you can guess what the perspective of this newspaper clipping is here. This was what they used to surrender. Okay, they didn't have a white flag, so it's like a dishcloth. Okay. Um, and literally like a rag that was used to tie to a pole to go ahead and surrender. And this is from the Smithsonian telling about it. Here, Sherman capture. What is this here? Release surrender his army. This towel was used as a flag of truce by Confederate troops during Lee's surrender. It was preserved by General Custer, who was present at the surrender. So that is the dish towel, the rag that was used for Lee to put up his surrender of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia there. Casualties, okay, 1.5 million, 1 million. Look at these died from wounds, okay, 110,000 in the north, 95,000 in the south. But look at these died from disease. Okay, yeah, I think we all know this by now. The fact that we're sitting in our homes, that disease is awfully deadly, especially when you concentrate people together. No social distancing in warfare. Okay? And you can see 250,000 on the Union side, 164 there. So death rates are about equivalent. Civil War compared to other wars. Now, this number is constantly being revised. The highest number I've seen is 700,000. Okay? That's 700,000 Americans. World War II, 318,000. 120,000 Vietnam. We are now at COVID-19. COVID-19 is going to fit like right here, probably as of tomorrow. Okay, that's how many Americans are dying from this disease. Okay, more than this war, more than the Korean War. This war is going to end slavery, and we'll get that with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. But now I have questions. How are we going to allow the states back in? Okay, you committed treason against us. What do we do now? Okay? What's the status of these freed people? Are they citizens or what are they? Okay? We got a lot of questions that still aren't answered at the end of this war. Okay? And just when we think things are going to have a good leader to wrap things up, President Lincoln is assassinated. Okay? 5 days after Appomattox. April 14th, he goes to see a play, My American Cousin, and John Wilkes Booth comes in. He's an actor, famous, goes through the back doors. There's no Secret Service at this time, walks up behind Lincoln and assassinates him. There he is. There's the assassination. Here is the reward put out by the War Department. Because after he flees, he takes off. There's Walt Whitman saying he belongs to the ages. There's Lincoln dying on his deathbed. There are the people when they're caught being executed, including women. And this right here is a map of Lincoln's funeral train, starting in Washington, D.C., okay? Philadelphia, New York, Trenton. This train takes Lincoln's body all across this portion of the United States till it gets him back out here to Illinois, where he lived to rest for eternal peace. You can click on here, read a little more about it. I got an image here. This is here in Philadelphia, right on Chestnut Street, Market and Chestnut. Going down the main line right there, there is his sarcophagus where he's being transported and put on parade. You have, let me see if I think I have, yeah, another picture here. People from the rooftops clamoring, okay, to see this here. Okay, here it is down Broad Street. Okay, people lined up, massive, okay, to witness their president who, held the country together, defeated the states of rebellion, now being laid to rest. Okay. Yeah, you can skip over this part right here. This is a classroom assignment. These are all the people tried in a military tribunal court, okay, instead of a civilian court. All 8 were found guilty. President Johnson, who was Lincoln's vice president and is from Tennessee, a Southerner, we'll get to that soon. Pardoned Spangler and Mudd. Okay. And this guy, 1866, captured in Egypt. He gets the civilian court when he's finally got back. Skip through there. And right here, important part. Okay? 13th Amendment to the Constitution is ratified. Okay? This is where that pesky little issue we've had since our nation's inception of 1619 is finally ended. Okay? So from 1619 to 1865, so do the math there, 220, 35, 45, 246 years, by my rough estimates, our nation was founded on the prospect and not prospect, but on the idea that black Africans, who then become black Americans, Negroes, coloreds, were the terminology used, were not equal to whites in the United States. That has now ended. Okay? The idea of enslaving people based on their skin color, okay, is persona non grata now in the United States. Okay? But what does that mean for the millions of people that are still here? If they're not slaves, then who are they? Are they Americans? If you remember that Dred Scott decision, Justice Taney said, no, they're never intended to be Americans. So how do we fix that in our system? How do we, what do we do? Do we say we will ship you back to Africa, as some people have advocated doing? Do we say we will grant you citizenship? And if so, how do we do that for states that don't want to do that? Okay? So that is going to be part of the reconstruction process, or the putting back together the country. Okay? But there's a problem with that. Why would you put back something together that didn't work? If you're going to reconstruct or rebuild, okay, in the same manner, then you're going to have the same problems. So our next portions of learning are going to be about how we redesign America, okay, and how we incorporate those ideals that all men are created equal.